Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's lovely to have you here this morning. I am the Reverend Carol Bedeau. I am privileged to serve here as minister. I want to welcome you this morning to Westside. I want to say a special good morning to those who are with us virtually in our virtual reality. Though many of us like to gather in person, it is becoming increasingly clear that we have a large community of people who are with us online. And so let us all take just a moment to, those of you who are here, if you can physically turn around and wave. We are grateful to everybody who's here. Good to have you here this morning. So we have a lot of things going on in our reality right now. A lot of things are moving around and changing. So we have some announcements, and some of them that are in your order of service are just wrong. So let me give you a couple of heads up about this. So next week was supposed to be the play. It's not. It's going to be in November. And currently we are having some debates about when we're going to be doing some upcoming events. So the auction, the play, and some other special events, we're currently navigating our decisions. The board is meeting this afternoon to make some of those decisions. So Suzanne has some welcoming words for us this morning, and then we will be, I'll be giving you a few more details about the upcoming events and some of the things that aren't listed in your order of service. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be here first.
That's okay. We wing it.
Welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. This is a Pride celebration, and fall is a good time for celebrations. We need it, right? Days are getting shorter, time to put some energy into being together. So we've got parties coming up, the auction party, the celebration of the payoff of the mortgage party, and today we have Third Sunday potluck. So please stay, whether you've remembered to bring something or not, and join us, and we'll just be together. Announcements. Yeah, we're no longer reading all the announcements. Thank God. That's from an atheist. Thank God. But pointed things. The auction, beginning next Sunday, people can start bringing concrete objects, right? We don't have the room set aside yet, but by next Sunday we will. So if you have concrete things, they will be here and they'll be locked up, and so we can do that. Okay. I have one more I'm supposed to announce. Well, the potluck is today. By the way, I forget that some paper plates can be compostable. We will be having compostable paper plates, and there'll be a bin for those to be put in, so don't put them in the trash, please, like I did yesterday, forgetting. So, awesome. I think that is it. Welcome. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're listening, watching if you're virtual.
All right. Ooh. The bowl wants to jump the gun today and be a little bit in advance. So today we are thinking about a lot of different things. It is LGBTQ plus History Month. I will make the announcement that the rainbow signs are gone again. We will put them back up again. That's all we need to say about it. We will persist in putting the rainbows back up on our front sign. So just hold a little love around the sign. The rainbows will go back. As I invite the bowl to sound this morning, what I'd invite you to do is just be present. There are so many things going on in the fall. Can you already feel the holiday rush already happening? We're struggling to keep our own calendar organized here, and Christmas is already in the craft stores. So, for just a minute, let's just be present. So if you can just, as the bowl sounds, take a breath. Notice that you're in a body. Notice that you're in this room. And for just the next 30 or 40 minutes, you don't actually have to be anywhere else. You don't have to think about what's happening tomorrow or even later today. Just for the next little while, see if you can just be right here, right now.
Reverend Carol will light the chalice. I have 3 quotes. They just all appealed to me. From Jason Collins. I didn't know who Jason Collins was, but he was the first male athlete to come out as gay. 2014, that's awfully recent to be first. But from Jason Collins, openness may not completely disarm prejudice, but it's a good place to start. Second is James Baldwin from Giovanni's Room. Love him and let him love you. Do you think that anything else under heaven really matters? And finally, from RuPaul. We're all born naked. The rest is drag.
That one's great. That's awesome. So we have a couple of special candles to light today. And so, Suzanne, I'm going to ask you to be our candle lighter of our special candles up here. Mm-hmm. And the first, so we're going to light them one at a time. So we'll light the first one. The first candle, I would like for us all to just take a moment and hold in our hearts and in our minds all the people of Israel, Gaza, the West Bank, and the countries surrounding that. No matter what we believe politically about who is right or who is wrong or what should or should not happen, we all are aware that there is enormous suffering occurring. And in the moment of most crisis, what matters is simply showing up with our presence. We are far away, but we can take a moment of silence just to hold in our hearts all the people in all the situations there who are suffering. And the second candle, this is a more celebratory one. Many of you have already heard this news, but we're making it official right now. The mortgage for the building has been paid off. Woo! How many years early is that, Craig? How many years early have we paid that off?
I've lost track, but at least 5,
I think it was like 5 or 6 or 7 years. It was a lot. Well, from the original, we started the campaign over a year ago, and at the last announcement it was, it'll be 2026 or so. And then Craig showed up at the board retreat a few weeks ago and said, well, by the way, actually, I'm going to pay it off in the 1st of October. So, this is a huge accomplishment for the congregation. We are planning a big celebration. We're trying to juggle all the dates of the November potluck and the play and the auction and the party to celebrate the mortgage. And that's a lot of things, and right now we're not exactly sure when those are all going to happen, in what order, but plan to party a lot in the next few weeks, okay? And if you are with us virtually, we're going to try to figure out a way that you can participate in some of those events. So a big, huge thank you to everyone who participated in that. Whether your contribution was $5 or $20 or much more than that, together as a community, we do have the capacity to do things that surprise us. I can only say that most of us were pretty surprised that that happened. We started that project and thought, well, we'll make a little progress. I don't think any of us said, oh, we'll have it paid off in a year. That was fabulous. So these are the things we have that we can do that are possible. So today we're going to be talking about people who have overcome great suffering and who have accomplished great victories, and particularly people in the LGBTQ plus community, because as we all know, life is full of that kind of contrast, joyful celebrations of victory that either come at the same time as or right on the heels of terrible struggle and suffering. The human experience is laden with these sorts of joys and sorrows on a grand scale, a global scale, and also on a very personal, private scale. Nowhere is it more evident that that happens than in struggles over identity, sexual identity, gender orientation. On the one hand, these are very personal and private, and yet they are also incredibly public-facing. At the very same time, someone's choices about an expression of their identity in these very personal ways has enormous impact societally, politically, culturally, globally, on a very grand scale. So each personal and private story directly impacts the much bigger narrative that we are all part of. And at the same time, every single public event, each court decision, each victory or defeat on the societal scale, those global things directly impact the lives of innumerable individuals. So this is a place where the public and the private meet in a very powerful and profound way. And so this week, in honor of LGBTQ plus History Month, we are going to be honoring the stories of some very public figures who have allowed their personal stories to lead public change. These are individuals whose willingness to be authentically out in the public arena as LGBTQ plus has impacted our collective reality. So in 1994, Rodney Wilson, who was a Missouri high school teacher, decided that a whole month should be dedicated to celebrating the lives of gay and lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. He gathered with other teachers and community leaders to create National LGBT, then it was called National LGBT and now LGBTQ History Month. They selected October for a specific reason, and that is because National Coming Out Day is October 11th. So just this last week was National Coming Out Day. This celebration was endorsed by GLAAD and the Human Rights Campaign, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, the National Education Association, and a whole number of other national organizations. And in 2006, Equality Forum, it's an organization that assumed responsibility for providing content and promotion for this particular month. So the way the month is celebrated is this. Each day in the month of October, the organization highlights the life of one person, one individual, who's made a difference in the world. And that doesn't necessarily mean that their biggest impact has been specifically geared towards LGBTQ plus activism. These are individuals who happen to be LGBTQ plus and who maybe their work has been heavily activist in that area, but also they're just amazing people in the arts, in politics, athletics, some other area of life. And they also happen to be LGBTQ plus. So for each, in the year preceding each celebration of this month, the organization takes nominations, And you could actually start, if you wanted to nominate somebody, you can nominate them now. They take nominations in the preceding year, and then once October arrives, on the website, they highlight the life of one person. So actually, I will say that I was a little bit frustrated because I can only access the videos and the bios on the website of the people up through October 14th as of yesterday. So they literally release one each day, right? So you have to kind of check it out every single day if you want to read about all these people. I cheated. I used Google and Wikipedia on some of the people that we're going to be talking about today. But it's a wonderful website because there's a video about each person, and then there's biography and other resources that you can access. So today we're just going to hear about a few of this year's honorees and have a chance to share briefly about other figures that we also want to name who aren't necessarily listed this year. Suzanne has mentioned RuPaul already, who's made a huge impact societally. So be thinking about specific figures that you might want to name, because we're going to share some of those. And if you are with us virtually, I am going to invite you to email your suggestions to me in the next 15 minutes or so at revcarol@westsideuuc.org, because we'll read those too. But here's the caveat. We're not going to be talking about personal, individual people in our lives as role models. We're only going to be talking about public figures, because we are going to honor and respect that coming out is the responsibility, the choice, and the privilege of the individual doing it. So we're not going to out anybody here, even though we may admire them. We're only going to talk about individuals who are already very publicly out. So think about the people you might have seen on television, musicians, artists, people who impacted you in this way, who somehow touched your life or touched your understanding, or in some way had a positive impact in your mind on society. So here are a few bios of some of this year's 31 honorees. These are some amazing people. So number one is Marin Alsop. Marin Alsop is the chief conductor of the Vienna Radio Symphony Orchestra. She's a violinist. She's a graduate of Juilliard School for the Performing Arts and was a protege of Leonard Bernstein's. She played with the New York Philharmonic and the New York Ballet before becoming a conductor, and then she became the principal conductor of Britain's Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra. She was the first conductor of any identity to receive a MacArthur Genius Fellowship. And then, after she received it, like a year later, as director of the Baltimore Symphony, she gave $100,000 of the MacArthur Prize to start an organization called Orchestra Kids, which serves underrepresented children in the Baltimore area in having access to musical education and the performing arts. She was the first female director of the Sao Paulo Symphony Orchestra and the first woman ever to lead any Viennese orchestra. She and her wife, Kristen Jerkscheit, have a son together. So she's not particularly being an LGBTQ plus activist, but she is rocking it in the world of music and orchestral music, and happens to be a lesbian woman doing that. More publicly oriented towards political activism, Chasten Buttigieg is the husband of Pete Buttigieg, and I pronounce it wrong. Is it Buttigieg? Buttigieg, right? So many of you will remember Pete Buttigieg from the presidential race a few years ago. He was formerly the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and then after the election became Secretary of Transportation. So his husband, Chasten, was the first gay first gentleman of any major city in the U.S. He served as his husband's campaign spokesperson, advisor, and social media manager, and then wrote a book called I Have Something to Tell You. He and his husband have twin children. And so clearly they were very publicly out, actively advocating for LGBTQ plus rights. Also big in the news with a slightly more mixed media message is Brittany Griner. She's a 7-time Women's NBA All-Star, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and was in the headlines within the last couple years for her arrest and detainment in Russia following the seizure. She had a medically legal marijuana vape in her luggage, but in Russia that wasn't allowed. So she was a prisoner in Russia for a more long time than I think anyone would be comfortable being. She was actually traded in a 1-to-1 prisoner swap and is married to Cheryl Watson. Carl Nassib is another openly out athlete, like Brittany Griner. And Carl Nassib, although there have been other pro football players who have come out, they have come out after they've been active in the sport. So Carl Nassib, he played for the Cleveland Browns, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Las Vegas Raiders. And in 2021, he came out on a social media post during Pride Month. At that time, he pledged $100,000 to the Trevor Project, which is an organization committed to crisis intervention and suicide prevention for LGBTQ plus youth. Now, he was an active player in the NFL at the time, and after that, he continued to play and actively play in games. So he is known as the first openly out active NFL athlete. A couple of other people, Maura Healey is the governor of Massachusetts and was the first out LGBTQ plus state attorney general in the U.S. She is also happens to be the first female governor of the state of Massachusetts. Michael Stipe is a very well-known rock musician. Okay, here's your quiz. Anybody know who? I see a couple of smiles. Some of you know who Michael Stipe. I didn't. Okay, who is he? REM. Some of you are more musically literate than I. Okay, so he is the lead singer of REM. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. He's also worked in film as an executive producer on such works as Being John Malkovich, which you all should see just for the wow factor of it if you haven't seen it. He's been a voice actor and a screen actor. Now, he made a very public statement that I think is really wonderful. He identifies publicly as queer, saying he's had relationships with people of all kinds of genders. He's been publicly in the media as having relationships with people who identify as men and people who identify as women. And someone asked him, do you identify as bisexual? He said, I identify as queer. Queer describes something more inclusive than other labels. Now, also in the political arena in another country, Tessa Ganserer is one of 2 trans women who were elected to the Bundestag, Germany's federal parliament, in 2021. She's a representative of the Greens Party and has been a political leader as an environmental advocate for many years. Since 2002, when she was a young adult, she'd been publicly doing this. But she was, in the early part of her career, identifying as a man. She came out as trans in the middle of a very active political career. So she was very much in the public eye as she made her transition. And finally, of the people we're going to name from the list of their 31 honorees today, Corporal Evelyn Thomas. Corporal Thomas is an African-American Marine who was discharged from the military for being a lesbian. When a fellow Marine found a letter in Thomas's possessions from her mother this letter mentioned Thomas was dating a woman, the fellow recruit turned the letter in to higher-ups, and she was removed from service. This was 2 years before the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy went into place. And under that policy, 14,000 service members, heavily represented by women and African Americans, 14,000 service members were discharged for their sexual orientation. In 2009, 2 years before the policy was reversed, Evelyn Thomas founded the Sanctuary Project to serve those adversely impacted by Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And in November of 2010, which was only a few months before it was reversed, she and 12 others were arrested in a protest against the policy. They chained themselves to the White House fence. It was repealed in the following, they did that in the fall of 2010, and it was repealed in the winter of 2011. So, lots and lots of different ways that people can be representative of the LGBTQ plus community in ways that are public and sometimes activist-oriented and sometimes just living great lives, being great, amazing, rock star kind of people. So, take a minute and think of who might have been on your list of those kind of people. People you saw in your life who happened to be LGBTQ plus and were public figures. We're going with public figures here. So I'm gonna give my personal favorite for me as a first example. Does anybody know who Jonathan Van Ness is? Oh, you all need to go home and learn who JVN is. Okay? Jonathan Van Ness, how many of you ever saw, the original show was called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. Okay, the newer version of that is even cooler. It's just called Queer Eye. It's a Netflix series. It is an amazing series where a group of LGBTQ plus people who either were born as men or identify as men work with all kinds of people to reaffirm their lives, help them they do makeovers, but they do life makeovers. So Jonathan Van Ness is a non-binary activist, hairstylist, and one of the stars of this show, but he is so much more. He is so much more. If you ask a much younger generation, the 20-somethings, the teen and 20-somethings of the LGBTQ plus community, and you say JVN, most of them are going to know who you're talking about. So my first impression of Jonathan Van Ness was watching this amazingly caring, loving, kind. He's got a big beard. They have a big beard and long hair. And he identifies as, he'll take any pronoun. He, she, they. He will take all of them. Wears the most amazing dresses. Sometimes he dresses as a man. Sometimes he dresses as a very flamboyant woman. Jonathan Van Ness is just completely comfortable being whoever Jonathan wants to be on any day. And I fell in love watching this person wearing like chiffon and very high heels with a big long beard and hair up in a ponytail. And I thought, this person is so authentically who they are. It's awesome. So Jonathan Van Ness was a wonderful person for me to just watch and learn about, because when you watch Jonathan Van Ness, you don't actually care what Jonathan is wearing or what the hair looks like. What you care about is the love and the care and the consideration and the creativity that he, she, they are expressing at any given time. So now it's your turn. Has anybody got anyone in their mind that they have seen as a public figure? Okay, so let's see. Shirley, are you willing to come up here? And I'm going to get my phone so I can look at my email. You got to at least say a little something. So your assignment is to say their name and say just how they struck you or what.
Well, my person is Adam Lambert, and he has been the lead singer for Queen, and individually he does a lot of cool singing too, but I don't know that much about him otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay, we have one online. Curtis is voting for Pete Buttigieg. My thought about Pete is that he was the mayor in Indiana and was fully out at that time, and that's a big deal. He also is such an advocate for the military and is very public with telling his story. Not only was he mayor, but he was also a solid candidate for president. He's Secretary of Transportation, goes on Fox to debunk conspiracies and speak truth, went through all the nonsense he was subjected to when he took maternity leave for their twins. He's a leader in so many ways. Much admiration for him. Okay, Andy, come on. Here, we'll make this easier so you don't have to wind your way around this.
Okay, the person that I want to say is John Lovett, and he was a speechwriter for Obama, but he's also he has a podcast and he's a comedian, and he spreads his message through comedy, and he's really amazing.
What's his name again?
John Lovett.
John Lovett, okay. Okay. Who else can we think of? Okay, Bridget.
Sir Elton John. He was always my favorite.
Yes.
It's like, I mean, you gotta have Elton John. And like, when I was little, before I knew what gay or anything was, I'm like, why does he dress, you know, and like my parents tried to explain it to me, and I'm just like, well, if he loves whoever he's singing about that much, because I always loved his songs, still love his songs, and love his flamboyant, what all he wears. I just love Elton John, but anyway, I always thought if he loves somebody that much that he could sing these songs, then he must really love them. So even as a child thinking that, but I like Elton John. And Ellen DeGeneres is a wonderful person, so. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, she had some controversy, but I think lots of people have controversy, but I think she's a wonderful person, and I loved watching her show. So those are my two.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
The person I thought about this morning was Ronan Farrow, and he's a journalist and was integral in the Harvey Weinstein case and bringing that forth. So.
Okay, awesome. Awesome, awesome.
I'm going to name Kristen Sinema. She's a, I think, senator from Arizona, but she also does triathlons, and she's an atheist.
Awesome. Barry?
I may be bending the rules a little bit because this isn't a specific person, it's a group of people. It's the cast of the streaming show called Pose, which takes place in the primarily African American and Latin American dance scene that was big in New York City starting in the 80s or about the 70s and 80s. But most of the cast is transgender women, and it's quite an amazing show. Recommend it, and they're really portraying themselves in the show, and they're very good.
Awesome. Great. Anybody else? Deanna.
The person that came to my mind was actor Rock Hudson. He was one of the first actors that came forth with AIDS, and he was the first actor that actually passed away from AIDS that they knew where he got it and how he got it, and he's the one that started the movement for AIDS research.
Awesome. Excellent example. Yeah. Yep. Anybody else?
This isn't very original, but I just admired Liz Cheney so much. She's a sharp enough politician, she had to know that she was going to lose her seat in probably everything in terms of Wyoming politics. for saying, yes, this is a corrupt president, I need to vote against him. That's very brave.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, who else we got?
Oh, I can talk from here.
Okay, well, they won't be able to hear you online if you do that. We live in a virtual age where the microphone isn't just for us in the room, it's for everybody who's wherever they are on the planet.
Thank you. The person that I'm a sports freak, and I, on Saturdays, watch college football from 12 noon till 12 midnight. So that gives you some kind of identity. I have two people in mind. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the second person, but when I tell you a little bit about her, you'll refresh my memory. The first one is Billie Jean King. And what she did for tennis is beyond belief. And the second person, in fact, I was so carried away with Billie Jean King that I wanted to buy her house in Hawaii. But the second person is a soccer player. What's her name? Yes, Rapinoe. And what she's doing in soccer is the same thing that Billie Jean did in tennis. And those are my two.
Awesome. Great, great. We got anybody else we want to name? Notice that these are people that come from all different kinds of arenas in our social sphere, right? One of the best things that's happened in recent history is that there was, for a long time, this prejudice or this bias that LGBTQ plus people could be pigeonholed into certain aspects of society. And it's just completely false. Like everybody, every field you can name, every part of society you can name has LGBTQ plus people in it, right? So that has been a huge change in our society. It's a wonderful thing. So even if someone is not being specifically an activist, just living our lives authentically is a radical act that can change the world. So I want us to hold on to that. I invite you to hold on to that. That sometimes the most radical thing you can do is just be the best version of you. You don't necessarily have to do what other people think is the thing you should do to change the world. You just have to be yourself. And if that means you're a violinist or a soccer player or you write poetry or you're a good grandparent or you happen to know a lot about, I don't know, Shakespearean plays, whatever it is, if we can just aspire to be authentically and skillfully ourselves, that alone can change the world. And supporting one another in that endeavor. So we talk a lot here about how we can participate in justice. There's a lot of ways we can participate in justice. We've shifted the way we talk about this in our service to justice and generosity opportunities. There are all kinds of ways you can contribute to supporting justice in the world. You can donate to this organization. And I will reiterate what the finance team keeps telling me, which is just because we've paid off the mortgage doesn't mean we don't continue to need financial support. I'm shaking my finger again. People have warned me to stop doing that. I can't help it. I am authentically gesticular. But we do, in fact, need to continue to need support financially. So if you are able or willing, you can make a physical donation in person here by putting something in the box in the back of the sanctuary, either before or after the service. You can donate online. There is a QR code on your screen. There's also a QR code on the box. And you can also go on our website. Some other things that are happening, if you would like to donate through the auction, which you've been hearing about and you're going to hear more about, you can donate objects. projects to the auction. It's a big fundraiser for us. You can also donate events or activities. You can be part of the talent show. You can just come to the auction and shop for holiday gifts for family and friends. We are also collecting material goods for different kinds of projects in the area, and I also want to give you the heads up that starting in a few weeks, we'll be announcing our justice and generosity projects for the holiday season. We'll have some specific projects for the holiday season. All of these things are ways that we can act. We can act by educating ourselves. We can act by just supporting those in our lives to be authentically who they are. We can act through advocacy. We can act through activism. All of these are ways. And sometimes we can act through singing by making music. So I am going to invite the choir to come up, and they are going to explain to you how you get to participate in this song. It's by the Chapin Sisters. It's called We Will Not Stop Singing. There are some words in your order of service, but Yetta and Linda are going to play the guitar, and the choir is going to sing, and I believe one of you guys is going to explain how this is going to work for the congregation to participate, hopefully.
Yes, please join us on the refrain. The words are in your order of service.
We want to give special thanks to the Chapin Sisters who gave us permission to use that song. You will get to practice it again. That was just your first time. I guarantee you we will be bringing it back. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit. If you are with us virtually, you can just sort of imagine that our hands are there with you. If you want to hold a hand, you are welcome to do so. You can also hold your own hand. It is okay to hold your own hand. I'll hold your hand, Suzanne. Here, okay, here we go. So, take a look around you at the people in this circle. If you are with us virtually, everybody just turn and look at the camera for a minute. They can't see all of us, but we're here. Now think for a moment of the people in your circle in your life. Maybe the people that you will see when you go home or talk to on the phone, the people you will be in a meeting with, the person you're going to drive to the doctor's office this week, the family members you don't see. We are all in circles that grow larger and larger and larger and wider, like ripples in a pond. You being authentically yourself in a way that is loving and kind has an impact. Each of us has the power to impact others, and when we join together in circles, we have the power to make big impacts. So just take a moment to know that you count, that your choices count, and that you can make a difference in the world. We don't stop in the face of suffering. The people who we honored today surely suffered on the way to their victories. So we hold each other in care during the struggles, and we celebrate together in the victories. Go into the world knowing that you matter and that your victories make a difference in the world. Go in peace, go in passion, and please join us for potluck if you're able.